I arrived in Grantham in the afternoon and rang the doorbell. John isn't his real name, but it makes things easier if he has a name. He came down to the street door and opened it. At first I was shocked at how bad he looked, even though he had recently shaved and cut his hair. He'd lost his cheeky boy looks. He had lost his cheeky boy looks. I hadn't seen him for 10 years. I was expecting to see someone who is 10 years older, but ultimately the same person. After all, we had kept in touch while I was in Spain and Germany. We both got very close prior to my leaving, and I wasn't expecting to be disappointed. He helped me to carry some of my belongings into his apartment, and obviously I cast an eye over the place. It was untidy, but then I'm not the tidiest of people. It wasn't until the following day that I started to take note of the state of the place. That the kitchen had used plates, dishes and pans lying around didn't really faze me. I was prepared to clean and wash up. The sink in the bathroom was piled with clothes and more washing up, and some of the pans were mouldy. It was the same story in the bedroom and living room. Wherever there was space, something was filling the space. Clothes, plates, pans, everywhere. On that first day we chatted, and John said that normally the place was spick and span, and it had only got out of hand during the last 2 weeks. I had decided to come here and was prepared to bite the bullet, but I was feeling those 1,500 kilometres behind me. I had decided to come here and was prepared to bite the bullet and be positive. John lit up his first pipe. Again, I let it slip, but soon realised over the next few hours that this was actually the norm. We had to share a bed because that was all he had, and we retired at about 3 a.m. Also, this wasn't so unusual for us. 10 years ago, we were often drinking until the early hours of the morning before crashing out. We got up sometime in the afternoon, and I was hoping we could start cleaning up. John was on the phone organising his first crack delivery. It was obvious he was getting the drug on tick, and I started to wonder how far this had gone. I tried to stay positive, thinking it was just a bit of fun. It was just like recreational drugs, but it wasn't. It was a need, or a want at least. It was obvious he was getting the drug on tick. I started clearing the kitchen of rubbish and washing up and clothes while John smoked in the living room. After a couple of hours scrubbing pans and plates, I had had enough and sat down to talk with John. There was really no sensible conversation coming out of it, and I had a feeling of confusion as I watched John sucking on an obviously homemade pipe. Over the next weeks, we had several talks about what, for me, was obviously an addiction. I listened to him ordering his next fix, after which he would leave the apartment and return after a few minutes. After this, the seedy side of drugs takes over. Cocaine is emptied into a tablespoon, mixed with baking soda and water, and the flame under the spoon brings the mixture to boil. It gets mixed and boiled dry. The left residue is crack, and it gets broken into small pieces and put in a pipe. The pipe bowl has a piece of pan scrubber in it to support the crack, and the ever so small piece of crack is placed on top, and with the flame held over it, it melts at about 90 degrees C and sublimates and is breathed in. When I say breathes in, he totally empties his lungs, then sucks on his pipe with the flame over the crack until his lungs are completely full again, and then he holds his breath for as long as he can do, and then lets it out. I was buying food and was doing my absolute best to help him by staying positive. We talked about going to Ireland and touring Scotland, and I genuinely thought I was getting through to him, but it became clear I wasn't. He became a bit more secretive about how much he was consuming, and it was obvious every time they got his benefits paid out, he was straight onto the phone. If he had run out the day before, he would be borrowing money on the strength of his benefits the next day from people who I personally can't call friends, but he saw them as such. He looked much older than he is. Most of his teeth were missing or broken, which distorted his lips. He hardly washed and did nothing all day. In fact, during those 10 years, he had done nothing at all. So every day started the same. Sometimes he might have a small amount left over from the night before, which was unusual, but he might do. And he would start with that for the following day, for breakfast as it were. If he had none left over from the night before, he had a screw, a wood screw, which he would scour inside the pipe to clean any residue out. Normally, he'd only get a few pieces of dust, but he still wanted to smoke it. The scouring his pipe would normally only produce a little bit of dust. He still tried to get a hit from it, but he admitted himself there was nothing. He would even scrape the area under his spoon using a razor blade. This became a sound that grated on my ears and said to me that it was the action of doing drugs rather than the need for the drug itself, because what he got from his scouring of the pipe or scraping of it was a bureau, really produced nothing. But he'd still put it into his pipe and try and light it up. He half admitted as much once, that it was the action of doing the drugs rather than the drugs themselves that he craved. After his first phone call, normally between 10 and 15, 20 minutes, his phone would ring again and he'd disappear out the apartment, go downstairs, pick up his first fix and mix the coke with baking powder and water, and then that would be boiled in a spoon, and the residue that's left is the crack. And then if he had enough for the day, which was very unusual because he'd be on the phone trying to borrow money nearly all day as well, so he'd only be buying £5 at a time, sometimes if he was lucky £10. He would then smoke, and then after he'd got rid of that, he would be straight onto the phone borrowing money or trying to borrow money. He did ask me several times to lend him money. I did lend him some money, thinking I was helping him out, but it became a little bit of a, can I say joke, when he wanted me to lend him £1 so that he could go and get some coke. He'd sit in the bedroom just smoking. A pipe would be something like about 3 hits. So he'd load it up, smoke it, lay it aside. The hit would last about 10-15 minutes if he was lucky, but I'm not even so sure that he got anything out of it at all. Then he would have another puff on the pipe and then a third one, and that was normally that pipe finished. So he spent most of the day trying to borrow money and phoning his dealer, collecting the stuff and continuing to smoke. So we had absolutely nothing going on between us. We hardly even talked in the end. When it became clear to him that I wasn't going to give him any money, he'd invite people and I don't want to judge homeless people because I'm homeless myself at this time, but he would invite people to come back to his apartment. They would supply the drugs and he would smoke along with them. So that was how he got his drugs when he had no money. Some of these visitors came and they stayed for a week or so. And then it seemed to be accepted that I would clean up after everybody. And obviously I wasn't going to do that. So I cleaned up what I used and left the rest in a pile in the kitchen. I just piled it up in the corner. I expect it's still there now. When we had the conversation that I should leave, the first one, I let it go, really. I didn't take it too seriously. It wasn't until the second time, after the conversation I'd had with his mum, when she brought all the food round, and he said he wanted me to leave, that I thought, no, this is the best thing, because I was beginning to get irritated. The medication that I take, I was taking ridiculous amounts of it, really, and I could see no outway. I couldn't see a way to resolve the situation for his good or for my good. So that is why, in the end, I was glad that he said I should leave. And it was obvious that I was of no use to him. He wasn't getting any money off me. I wasn't giving him any help. So it was obvious that I was no use to him. So on Christmas Day this year, I spent the day in my car and slept overnight in the car, and it was damn cold. But I survived. With a phone call to the council the next day, not expecting much, they've actually looked after me really well, so I can't complain. In many ways, maybe it was good that I came back and this all didn't work out.